Georgia Virtue presents the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast.
Thank you for listening to episode 284. This week, we have No Step on Snake, Talking Sense on a special session, Deceasing Detainees, Will He Stay or Will He Go Now, Election Dysfunction, Brain Buffering, The Fun Police Strike Again, Georgia Gun Grabbers, and the number one story of last week. I can't even read what I wrote. And a rocky flight. I'm Dave Roberts. With me is my part of this endeavor, Representative Emeritus Ken Pullen.
It's probably because your Florida team. Aren't you a big Florida football fan, Dave? It's probably because they got demolished by the Utah last week.
Yeah, that will happen.
I mean, the SEC is not supposed to get beat by whatever conference Utah's in.
Mountain West or something.
Mountain West. That's a bad showing. You fly all the way across the country and you get beat by a bunch of Mormons. I think I can say that, can I?
Yeah, they're over there beating it with the Book of Mormon.
The great Mormon friends. So I didn't mean that
and they
as
all
a
have
slight.
Lots of kids.
Yeah, I didn't mean that as a slight in any way. But yeah, so the Florida Gators flew out and got beat by Utah. Handily got beat.
I didn't even know they were playing that night. That's one of the nights that the Braves were on the West Coast.
Yes.
The game started like 10:20.
Hey, did I say Acuna is now a 30 home run, 60 RBI guy, or 60 stolen base guy, and that's never happened before in the history of baseball.
Oh, yeah.
That is amazing.
That bat and ball, if they got the ball back, I don't know if they did or not, but that stuff's heading to Cooperstown.
And when he did this, he got married on the same day. Now, I'm a little confused on why the Atlanta Braves would let Acuna just run off and get married in the middle of the week during his MVP season. But hey, whatever's good for him, as long as he keeps it up, it's good with me.
I mean, they have the mornings off. You know, a lot of guys play golf.
Who gets married on a Thursday in L.A.? I thought that was kind of strange.
I thought the timing was strange also, and they already have 2 kids together.
Yes, I saw that beautiful family. But
it wasn't a shotgun wedding.
No, it wasn't. Not at all.
Unless they were planning on doing it this year, and she's worried that she was about to show. Who knows? I don't care. Just keep hitting dingers and stealing bases.
And I assume as this episode drops on Monday, Georgia will have destroyed their opponent, probably 63-0. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Georgia Tech probably got beat by Louisville. That's my prediction. Even though we're recording this early, Georgia Tech's probably going to be another pitiful football season.
You could have gotten in the building for $25.
And they don't even have a 300 section open in a Georgia Dome. That's how pathetic these two teams are and their fan bases.
Yeah, I mean, look, most fans would rather go to a high school game and watch better football than sit around and watch Louisville, Georgia Tech.
Yeah, especially on a Friday night. You got a lot of high school football games. The weather is going to be cool on that Friday night. So, yeah, I'd much rather do something else than go to downtown Atlanta on a Friday night and see Georgia Tech play Louisville.
Exactly. So, Colorado school attempts to kick out a 12-year-old boy. Why?
Yeah,
this is a big story for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, this story went viral. I mean, all of a sudden, I pull up Twitter one day, and everybody is sharing this video. So this 12-year-old student, he was at a school out in Colorado. He had a pretty large-sized book bag, and he has all these stickers on the back of his book bag, or these patches on the back of his book bag. One of them had the "Don't Tread on Me" flag, and school administration called his mom in, sits the kid down, and the mom is recording one of the school officials explain to them that the Gadsen Flag was associated with slavery and racism.
You mean when we flew the flag, it kicked out the people who brought slavery into this country?
Yes, right. Yeah, I mean, you could see the kid sitting there knowing, obviously this is a smart little 12-year-old. He's sitting there with sort of a smirk on his face the entire time because he knows this is going to go his way at the end of the day. But yeah, this lady is sitting there going to the Gadsen Flag associated with slavery, racism, and he was going to take it off. Literally, as soon as this went out there and got viral, the governor of Colorado came out and said, no, they've made a bad, and he's a Democrat governor, Jared Polis. He defended the Don't Tread on Me flag. He said he had every right to wear that flag on his backpack. But this little kid is all over. I think he was on, seems like he's on a Hannity show, or he's been on TV making his rounds. So, yeah, interesting story. But this school administration really stepped into it on this.
Yeah, they did. Why don't you let the kid do whatever he's doing?
Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't bothering anybody but a couple school officials. As soon as him and his mom left the school, I don't know if you saw this photo, but they walked out in the parking lot and they looked at the back of one of the teachers' cars. And one of the teachers' cars had all these, liberal slogans on the back of it, socialist type stuff on the back. And obviously they were making fun of her, saying, yeah, this car is okay to park in our school system, but I can't wear a flag that really talked about, Revolutionary War and not slavery. So, yeah, this couldn't have went any worse for the school officials.
I also heard that he's getting pats on the back from his fellow students for one, winning an appeal, and he's getting glares from his teachers. He's in middle school, so
yeah,
but yeah, he's getting the evil eye from his teachers, which I guess to a certain extent he's enjoying. But I'm sure there's also a level of harassment if he gets a B instead of an A in something.
Yeah, right.
Especially something that is non-quantitative, like creative writing or something like that. Look, if you take a math test, it's not like they can tell you that you're wrong.
Yep.
I mean, the math is right there, but if you're writing history papers or creative writing class, something like that, they can mess with you great.
Yeah, this is in Colorado Springs where the Air Force Academy is. Colorado Springs, I thought, was more of a conservative. I know Colorado's got a Democrat governor, but Colorado Springs, I thought, was more conservative leaning or Republican.
It doesn't matter. These teachers aren't elected.
That is true. I think most teachers are probably liberal in nature anyway. We've talked about that on the show a lot, where Governor Kemp continues to give out raises to teachers, thinking for some reason they're going to all of a sudden start voting Republican, and that's just typically not the case.
Right. Yeah, and look, it's not that all teachers are liberal or conservative. A lot of them are apolitical completely.
Yep. Especially
teachers for your little kids. Obviously, you have the teachers out there that want to read books about a boy who becomes a girl, but most of them they just want to teach kids to read.
Yeah, they just want to do their job. Totally.
I mean, look, if you get a kid who needs to, you don't care if he's reading Mein Kampf. Look, he's reading.
Yes.
And in a second language.
I agree
so
with
there's
you.
No special session coming.
No, what a story. This really blew up last week. So State Senator Colton Moore, if people remember, when Trump was arrested down at the Fulton County Jail, he showed up there along with Marjorie Taylor Greene. And Colton has since been sort of a leading proponent of the governor calling a special session. And this is really, it kind of took a life of its own. President Trump tweeted about Colton, State Senator Colton Moore. It's been all over the news, blew up nationally. And I think what happened, if I'm just reading into this, is the representatives, the governor, other senators in Georgia started getting a ton of probably nasty emails, calls to their offices, walking down the street, grocery store. People are probably saying, why are you guys not calling a special session to investigate Fani Willis? Because that's what Colton wanted the governor to do. Look, I agree with Governor Kemp on this. I don't think he has the authority to call a special session here. I don't think there's anything they could do if they called it. They don't have the votes to do anything. What was unusual about this is Governor Kemp came out and did a press conference and really smacked around. So you had Governor Kemp come out, Speaker of the House John Burns, and Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones along with other leaders at the Capitol, they all came out and really just smacked Colton around on this and said he was just doing this for himself. He was just doing it to raise money. I haven't seen a coordinated response to sort of slap around a elected official like this in a long time.
Well, he put everybody else up there on the spot. He called out the governor. He called out all of his fellow senators and everyone in the House.
He did. It's going to be a lonely Capitol for him next year, or when they go back in January, because he did not make any friends. I mean, made zero friends doing this. I don't think he had, but I saw Charlize Byrd, who was in the House Freedom Caucus in Georgia. I think she defended him, but I saw nobody else in the state defend him from an elected position.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have your nutcases on the wings that they're gonna say, yeah. That's not how it works. You can't just not like who she decided to indict when she went through the legal process to do it.
Yep.
You just can't.
Yes, I agree. And you know what Governor Kemp said is he said what Senator Moore is asking for is not practical. Calling individual members out by name becomes a distraction. What we should be talking about, and that is a gross misuse of power, resources, and responsibility from the Fulton County DA. That's actually what Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones said. So he actually called Colton out by his name, and he said, "I will continue staying focused on fixing the mess that she created with crime in Atlanta and helping Republicans win in 2024." So. Yeah, it's got to be lonely up in Northwest Georgia with Colton over the weekend because everybody is a coordinated attack against him. Now, Dave, I imagine the people up in his district love it. I think the people in my district love it. I've had people ask me in the grocery store this week, why is Governor Kemp not calling a special session? I get it, but every time you don't like something, you can't call a special session every time the conservative base, Republican base doesn't like what's going on.
And the fact is, it wouldn't stop the prosecution.
No, not at all. No, the prosecution was going on. And look, he wanted to defund the office. That's what Colton was calling for, is to defund the district attorney's office. They only get about 10% of their funds from the state. 90% comes from local. So that didn't make a lot of sense to call for defunding her office. Look, there's ways to go about this. They passed that new legislation last year. I don't think that would apply in this case, but there's other ways to go about this. This just took on a life of its own. And look, I know representatives are getting called left and right on this. Yeah, it probably was not a fun week for most of them.
No, and it sounds great to everybody who doesn't know how impeachments work.
Right.
I mean,
totally
it sounds fantastic.
Yeah, call a special session, right? Get them all back into Atlanta. Yep.
Yeah, call everybody back into Atlanta during an election cycle.
Yep. And the cost of that is a lot. You're having to start paying representatives whatever their rate is for every day they're in session. So it's not a cheap thing to do either.
And there has to be an investigation. You can't just vote on impeachment.
No, you can't.
You have to start an investigation. So you appoint a lead investigator. That person puts together a team. Even then, we wouldn't have details until at least mid-session 24.
Yep.
If that early.
Oh, I agree.
So more inmates croak over at Fulton County Jail.
Yeah, and this kind of piggybacks off the last story, which I think is something they ought to be concentrating on. I mean, we've talked about this quite a few times on the show, but one detainee was killed last week, and 2 others were injured following multiple stabbings at the Fulton County's. They call it the Rice Street Jail because it's on Rice Street. But more inmates at this point, and these are, I didn't get the details of the detainee that died, but I assume these are prior to conviction people that are at the jail. I don't know that for certain, but
or they're serving less than 1 year.
Yeah, or they're serving less than 1 year, right? So these are not inmates that have life sentences. More likely,
yeah, this is not Smith State Prison.
Yes, this is just people that were detained for some type of crime. They go into Rice Street, now they get stabbed and die.
Fani backing on this, on the previous story, is the almost exclusive obsession with going after Trump has caused a backlog.
Yes, right.
So some of these guys should be down in Smith. Actually, nobody should be in Smith State.
No, I don't think so.
A lot of these guys, I'm sure, should be in prison, and they are looking at life sentences.
Yep.
They've probably been there 2 or 3 years waiting for trial.
Yep, exactly. So you've got people that have not been convicted of anything sitting in one of the most dangerous jails in Georgia, if probably in the United States, and all this stuff happens. And look, we talked about it earlier. If individuals like this, and I think the individual that died was a black man. If a black man gets stabbed to death in the Pike County Jail where I live, which is a 90% probably white county, Republican-leaning county, Al Sharpton would be protesting in Pike County like yesterday about this. How did this happen? How did this occur that we had a black man killed in a jail run by a white sheriff? But this stuff happens every single day.
What about the guy that died being roach bit?
Yes, exactly. Where's the outrage from Al Sharpton and all the race baiting cronies that he hangs out with when people are dying left and right in the Fulton County Jail? Not a whisper happens. It's the same thing that happens but this will be aired, after Labor Day. But if you look at Chicago over the Labor Day weekend, there'll be 50 plus people killed in Chicago over the weekend, and there won't be a whisper from these people. It's just amazing that the selective outrage from the race baiters in the United States right now when things happen. I mean, where's Stacey Abrams speaking up about this? Where are the Democrat leaders in Georgia speaking up about this? Nobody. You can't hear a whisper from them. They're like a mouse in church right now. You can't. Nobody's speaking up about this except me and you on some random podcast that gets released on Monday. I just don't understand the selective outrage.
I don't say 284 is random.
No, you're right.
No, you're right. There's nobody out front. Where's Newsmax on this? Where's Fox News on this? Where are the conservative outlets?
Yeah, and look, Fani Willis did issue a statement. She said we should have built a new jail 15 years ago. She said people deserve to be housed humanely, even when they've been accused of crimes. So she said accused of crimes. Look, if it wasn't for her prosecuting and going after President Trump, she could be getting these people through the system, like you said, a lot faster, and they wouldn't be sitting in Rice Street Jail being accused of a crime, not convicted of a crime, but accused of a crime. So that's what I found kind of weird about her statement, is it said people deserve to be housed humanely, even when they've been accused. Just total garbage, right? Just total garbage.
Yeah, well, and most likely those are the inmates that she deals with, her office deals with. The ones that are in there for less than a year, that's from the solicitor's office. So but she's right. Look, even convicted of crime, you have the constitutional right to be handled humanely.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I sure as hell would not want to be in the Rice Street Jail.
Yep. And I didn't say this, but between 2000, to put this in perspective, between 2009 and October 2022, 13 years, more than 60 Fulton detainees have died. And that's the highest total for any jail in Georgia during that time. And then 8 inmates have died in custody at the Sheriff's County office since the start of this year. So we have 8 inmates that have died in custody just this year.
Well, you do have to look at the 60. When you say it's the most in Georgia, well, it's the biggest jail in Georgia too.
Yes, right.
So you'd have to look at the numbers per capita. Also, you could use numbers to tell any story you want, just depending on which side of the equation you put it on.
Yeah, no doubt.
But I have no doubt that they need a new jail. The population of Atlanta has exploded.
It has. They said a new jail is going to cost $1.7 billion is what they have estimated as cost at.
How many $100 million do you think it cost to prosecute Trump?
Yeah, it's going to be very expensive. With all the security that they have. I can't imagine what the trial's going to cost.
So I think they could at least put a decent down payment on the property with what they're going to use to prosecute Trump. Mm-hmm. Speaking of, will you even be able to vote for him?
What an interesting story that came out this week. So, we've been watching, and there are some liberal groups out there, nonprofits, which I'm not sure why liberals want to keep Trump off the ballot. I think Trump's going to have a hard time beating Biden. But anyway, background on the story is there are states out there in the U.S. right now that are trying to use the 14th Amendment to build a case where they can keep Donald Trump off the ballot next year. So either kept off the Republican primary ballot or off the general election ballot in November. I don't know what. I don't know what you think about that, but that's that could create a constitutional crisis in a second.
Well, that's what I think the plan is.
Mm-hmm.
Is you have to start your bowling ball all the way at the player's end and then roll it towards the pins.
Yep.
So with this, knowing that it may take a year for this to make its way through the courts, that allows them to cut the Republican nominee off at the knees before ever getting into early voting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they say the 14th Amendment bars from office anyone who took an oath to uphold the Constitution, but then engaged in insurrection or rebellion against it. So that's how they're basing this. We need to keep him off the ballot, because they're saying Trump engaged in insurrection or rebellion, which is against the 14th Amendment. So we can use the Constitution as our way to keep him off.
It's an interesting argument. It doesn't hold water because there was no insurrection.
I don't either, but I think they're trying to get this thing to the Supreme Court to make a decision. Now, I think we know how the Supreme Court would rule, but that's sort of the point, I think, from the liberal organizations right now is if this does make it to the Supreme Court, they're just able to say, once again, look how corrupt the Supreme Court is. You know, they're once again sticking up for Republicans, conservatives, and it just undermines the legitimacy of the court again. And I honestly, I think that's what they're trying to do here. Is just add another case where they get ruled against, and then they can undermine the Supreme Court.
Look, if somehow he got convicted of open rebellion, of sedition, okay, now you have a case,
right?
But to this point, he's been accused.
Yep.
And I don't think you can point to any of his actions or any of the things that he said where he's like, go get him.
No, I don't think you can either.
No, is his speech brash? Does it get idiots riled up? Yes. Is that illegal? No.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, what I found interesting too is the primary season. I didn't realize it kicked off so early, but the Iowa caucuses are January 15th of next year. I didn't realize we had a caucus as soon as the new year came around. I thought they were still March, April.
Hawkeye.
Yeah, I thought they were
All
March,
right.
April.
So
but it's January 15th. And I guess Georgia's caucuses or Georgia's presidential primary is in March, I think is the date.
Yeah.
Yes, everything's
so
6 months off.
It was late 90s, early 2000s. There was this competition between the states to get first.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the Hawkeye, which was traditionally first, as states jockeyed their position to, and this may have started during after the 2000 election, when so many of the competitors were out before states got a chance to vote.
Right,
and that's when Bush was running. So all these states jockeyed a position to get earlier and earlier and earlier, to the point where it's almost the caucuses are 11 months. 10 months before the damn election.
No, I think it's way too soon. But yeah, I was January 15th. There'll be, I guess, South Carolina moved up, where South Carolina is really early in the year now. And that was to help Biden's ability, if I remember correctly. I guess New Hampshire's early, and then Georgia again is in March. So I feel like we used to have Super Tuesday later in the year, but that's really been pulled up to March, April now. So we'll know who the Republican nominee is in no more than 5-6 months, which I think is President Trump. Now, I am hearing that Nikki Haley is having a lot of, she's gaining a lot of momentum in Iowa. So I don't think Iowa, whoever wins that is, I don't think if somebody else beats Trump in Iowa, that's an indicator that he's going down. But it would be interesting if she wins the Iowa caucuses on January 15th.
Yeah, then Then it's into New Hampshire, I believe, and I don't know, man. Once the caucus kick off, national polls are pointless. Might as well take them and throw them away. At that point, it's a state by state poll.
Yeah, so the South Carolina caucus is in early February. I just looked it up. So it'll be right after the January 15th. And if everybody doesn't know the difference between a caucus and a primary like we have, a caucus is literally a group of people that go down to and I was real small anyway, but they go down to the local gymnasium. You divide up and they'll say, if you support President Trump, we need you to walk over to the right side of the auditorium. If you support Governor DeSantis, we need you to go to the left side of the auditorium. And they do that for every one of the candidates on the ballot at that point. And that's how they caucus. And whoever has the most number of people that actually show up at the caucus is who wins. So, look, I'm a big fan of caucuses. I really like them. It's a very limited number of people that show up. And think of what Iowa is like on January 15th. That's one of the coldest places in the U.S. So if you're showing up on January 15th in Iowa, you're a hardcore somebody that really keeps track of politics. I mean, this is not just some random, Bob sitting around on his couch eating Cheetos. This is people that really have been keeping in touch with it, keeping up with what's going on.
Well, the Hawkeyes love it because they get a ton of attention. They're a small state.
Yep.
Once the caucuses are done, that's it.
And you know who the caucus people are before the caucus occurs most of the time. So it's sort of like the Republican state convention where you have to, they know ahead of time. So that candidates are pretty much shaking every caucus person's hand before that event. it's really it's like grassroots politicking. You shake every person's hand and they know who the candidates are.
Go and eat a corn dog at the fair and all that crap.
I've always wanted to go to that fair.
Run for president.
Maybe next year.
So Ukrainian elections are due up in 2024, but only if the U.S. pays for them.
Yeah, I thought this was interesting. So for some reason, Lindsey Graham was in Ukraine again, and he was asking about the elections next year and were they going to have elections, and President Zelensky responded to the calls by the senator to announce his election plans in 2024. And he said, hey, if you foot the bill, we'll potentially have elections if we can make sure they're secure and we can get enough people out to vote. So basically, we'll have some elections here in Ukraine, but you gotta foot the bill for it. Yeah.
Well, I do understand some of what he's saying. I guess he's being a little facetious. Is our people are being shelled?
Yes. How do you have an election when the country's in wartime? I got you. And they would actually have to change the law because right now they're under martial law, and it's extended every 90 days. It's set to expire November 15th. And so they would have to change their law to have it. And literally, how do you get out to vote if you're in wartime? But honestly, if people want change in Ukraine and they don't like Zelensky, how do they get the guy out of office? I mean, does he just automatically get to be president until this war ends? I mean, it could drag on for 10 more years potentially. So I still think there's got to be a way to have secure elections even during wartime.
Well, I mean, but how do you knock on doors when there are no doors?
I don't know, but you don't. I mean, the other side of it is you just get to keep your power forever until the war ends.
Well,
I don't know the best answer to this. I really don't.
We focus on Zelensky, but it's all the way down the ballot.
Yes, it's all the way down the ballot. So it's state level politicians, local politicians. Yeah, I mean, there could be people that disagree with his approach to the war that need their voice heard, and I mean, who knows? I guess you don't get to do that during wartime. I think it's tough. I mean, this is not something I've thought about much in the past, is how do you have elections during wartime? But I think elections during wartime potentially are just as important or more important than normal elections.
Yeah, I just don't know. In a place like Ukraine, I don't know how you make that happen.
Yep, I agree. Like,
it's It's obviously easy for the United States because our wars are elsewhere.
Yeah, but logistically, how do you make it happen? Yeah, I totally agree with you on that point.
I mean, it's the down the ballot that it's obviously you could hold an election for president pretty easily.
Yep.
Is you'd go with the purple finger, and everybody drops the ballot in the box and do it just like Iraq did in the early 2000s.
Yep.
But when you start talking about down the ballot and electing, city officials, the city may not even be there anymore.
Yep, right. He said he said the election costs $135 million in peacetime. You got to figure it costs a little bit more in wartime. So he's asking for somewhere around $250 million probably for the elections. Hey, look, we've given them over $100 billion. It's kind of silly to ask us for $100 million plus to have elections. You're either going to have them or not at this point.
Right. So McConnell's brain goes into buffering mode again.
Oh, how sad was this week again? I mean, it's become really hard to watch. He was up in Kentucky having a press conference in his home state. They asked him if he was going to run again in 2024. McConnell's up, and he just looks at the audience and froze. He froze, Dave. I think it was awkward. It was at least 30 seconds. And then his aide steps in and asks if he heard the question. He still didn't say anything. And then another, I guess his security team came out.
I think he said yes.
Yeah, he finally said something.
I think he said yes. Then they said, we'll need just a moment. So I assume the aide went over there, pressed Control Alt Delete, and reset the program and sent him back out there.
So you're saying he's a Microsoft and not an Apple? I got you.
Exactly, especially if it's freezing Windows like that.
Yes. This.
Ah, man, it's McConnell needs to go.
He does. He does. But it brings up the debate on term. So this brought up the debate on term limits again. Everybody's saying, or an upper age, I think is what the debate is now, right? Should people be able to serve past a certain age?
The problem with that question is that age is always moving.
It is. I don't believe there should be an upper age to when somebody could serve. And I used to be a big term limits guy. I think voters have the ability to term limit a representative at any point. I think it's hard, but they can. So I'm not even sure I support term limits at this point. But the people of Kentucky, if they don't want McConnell again, 2024 is coming around the corner. Get another Republican to run against them. Get a Democrat to run against them, and if you've got enough votes, you can win. I can't imagine McConnell.
Well, ideologically, I appreciate that, but McConnell also sits on tons of money.
There's no telling what his war chest is.
Yeah, especially as the minority leader.
Yep.
Is how do you get in a fist fight with this guy? If you're on the Republican side, and obviously if you're Democrat, the entire DNC would pour money into a Democrat to run against him. But how do you
even run a campaign?
Run against McConnell?
Yeah, how do you even run a campaign?
As an incumbent?
Yeah, and how do you run a campaign against someone that does look like their health is going downhill, and that is really what you're running against, but you don't want to point that out. You don't want to look insensitive to someone's health, right? I mean, it would be tough running against McConnell just because I don't know how you run that campaign. And by the way, he's been a great Republican Senate leader. We talked about this a while back, but I mean, he got all of Trump's nominations through to SCOTUS. I mean, McConnell, I think, will go down in history as one of the best Republican leaders ever in the Senate. So,
if he doesn't damage his legacy,
and look, people say, why don't he retire? The reason he's not stepping back now is the governor of Kentucky is a Democrat, and if McConnell steps down now, the Democrat governor would appoint his replacement until the next election come around. And so that's why he's not stepping down. It's the same reason why what's-her-name's not stepping down in California. She don't like who the governor of California would appoint to her successor. So it's not just McConnell not wanting to step down. There are political ramifications of him not stepping down or stepping down, right? I mean, last thing we need is another Democrat senator in Congress at the moment.
Yeah, and with the Senate being 6 years, it's tough.
It is, right?
Because when he ran for re-election last time, he was what, 75.
Yeah, he was 75 last time. He's 81 now.
Or no, was it?
Well, he's
80 now.
Yeah, he's 81 now.
Yeah, so he was 75 last time it came around, and he probably felt great at 75.
Yep.
But in that 6 years, he's physically deteriorated, which has caused a mental decline. You know, getting a concussion is no joke.
Yep. But it is September, right? And the primaries are next May. You know, if he's not going to run for office again, he needs to let people in Kentucky know so they can get ready to run, because it would be a free-for-all primary.
Unless he has somebody in his hip pocket.
Yes. And
who says just get ready to declare.
And that's probably what's going to happen. Yeah, hardly anybody just leaves office with no successor in mind.
Right. So I feel for him because he has had a distinguished career. I feel for Dianne Feinstein too, because she's had a distinguished career. She's wrong on most issues, but you know, she was a shining star in the Senate, you know, and a leader in Congress as a woman.
Yeah, I mean, you have to respect what she's done as.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, totally.
And this goes back to the 70s when we were still, you know, in the equal rights movement.
Yep.
And for her to stand up like that and be up there for so long is you know, obviously impressive. But at this point, you know, at 90 or 91 years old, you're being wheeled from place to place. She's almost an empty vessel.
Yep, she is.
But the nice thing is, no one tells her how many naps she can have. All right, so New York City is putting out the fun police, and now they're airborne.
They are. So I hope nobody parties too hard on Labor Day in New York. They have come up with a plan to fly drones over large gatherings, including private events, over Labor Day weekend. So basically, they said if we get a call from someone that says, you know, there's a party going on, there's too much noise or something going on, the NYPD commissioner said they will actually utilize their drone assets to go up and go check on the party, which is raising huge privacy concerns up in New York because normally, you know, police have to have warrants and all that kind of good stuff to go check on what people are doing, and they're just going to fly these drones right overhead and see what's going on in the backyard.
Yeah, there's a couple things on this. One is people are concerned over privacy. You have no privacy outdoors.
Yep.
That is it's a change in surveillance tactics. I don't know that it is, because they've been using helicopters for years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they could fly the helicopter over. Yep, and look straight down. That's true.
And with a FLIR camera, they can see right in your house. So in the old days, they could find grow houses that way. Nowadays, everything I believe is with LEDs don't put off heat.
Now, what happens if they fly one of these drones over your house and shoot it down, or you throw a rock up and hit it? I would imagine you're going to be in a lot of trouble at that point.
Yeah, damaging government property.
Yep. And even in the county where I live, I was going to say, our sheriff's told me before that, you know, if something, they can fly drones onto people's property if they suspect, or if there's some type of complaint, or they think something's going on there, or they're looking for marijuana, you know, that's growing. So, you know, it's not just New York, but local counties are also really ramping up their drone usage and flying them out to monitor different activities and stuff.
And look, you have no expectation of privacy outside. Yeah, that's just the way it is. If there's never been a definitive line of where your property ends vertically. This came up over airports years and years ago, where people complaining about jets flying over their houses for really it was a noise complaint, but it was that they're trespassing.
Yeah, yep.
And that was thrown out, but there's never been a definitive line that, okay, you own 50 feet of the tallest part of your structure.
So nothing vertically has ever come out where they defined that said you owe 50 vertical feet from your property lines.
The other way it has, especially out west with mineral rights and things like that, where you could own the topsoil, but the minerals below, someone else has the rights to.
Yep.
That was the plot of every Rockford Files in the 70s. But I'm not saying it's right. I think it's petty. I think it takes a lot of manpower. Even with pilotless drones, you still have someone controlling it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of manpower to check up on parties.
I agree.
Unless the party is code word for, something that gets out of hand, or code word for drug den or something like that.
Yep.
So Georgia mayors call for stricter gun control measures.
Yeah, so just last...
Good luck.
I know, good luck, right? But, last week a group of 46 Georgia mayors penned a plea. They called it a plea, not a letter, to Governor Brian Kemp and the General Assembly for new gun safety measures in the state. This includes people from all the way from like Atlanta to the mayor of Savannah. I know that's just shocking that the mayor of Savannah would call for more gun control, all the way up to North Georgia. And really what they're asking for, everybody's saying, well, what gun control measures are they asking for? They're asking for background checks for all firearms or firearm purchases or transfers. So they're asking for private party background checks, I assume, Dave, because I've never bought a gun from a store in Georgia that didn't do a background check on me. So they want private party background checks.
Do you have a concealed weapons permit?
They want requirements for safe storage of guns. I don't know how we've talked about this before. So they want you to store your guns safely in your house. And there's no way to actually check on that, I guess, unless a crime is committed.
It's not check on it. So if you're broken into and you say, well, what else do they get? Well, they got a
and then you're in trouble.
92 FS.
Right.
Yeah. From where? They broke into your safe? No, it was on my nightstand.
Yep.
So now you're the victim and you're going to jail.
And you're going to jail. They want to focus on high capacity weapons, and they want a new process to identify people who should not have access to guns. I don't know what that means. Should not have access to guns, and a new process to identify those people. I thought we identified people nowadays that should not have access, but anyway, all this stuff is dead on arrival. I just thought it was interesting how they're coming out and calling for this before the General Assembly meets next year. I'm sure Democrats will introduce
They're calling for it before the municipal elections coming up.
That's it too. Yep. Yeah, because
municipal elections are in November.
In November, and that's why they're calling for it. They'll look tough on gun control measures.
I know there's a cynical way of looking at anything a politician does. I'll find it.
You almost have to.
But yeah, if they drop this in January, it would actually make sense because that's when the legislature is going back into session. They're doing it now because qualifying just ended for most municipal elections. Jackasses. especially the jackass down in Savannah.
I second that. Yeah, Van Johnson's an idiot down in Savannah.
This is a good time to remind you that these are our opinions and not those of anyone not on the show or any respective company for which we may work, own, or otherwise associate ourselves with on a regular or irregular basis. Also, you can find other episodes and relevant stories over thegeorgiavirtue.com. All right, I picked the mule this week.
Tell me about it.
And honestly, every time this guy makes the news, it's Keith Olbermann. Former ESPN, former MSNBC.
Current jackass.
Oh, he's a jackass. So he goes after Riley Gaines and says that she was not a good swimmer. That's why she lost.
Not that she was swimming against a 6'4" man, but that she sucked at swimming.
Yeah, and she tied him.
So
and
her problem is she sucks at swimming, not that a 6'4" man beat her. Gotcha.
And that wasn't even the point of her testimony to Congress.
No, it wasn't. That was
about having to go into the locker room and be forced to change in front of a man.
Yep, and that's what she was talking to Congress about, is how her and her teammates would sit around in a female locker room, and Leah Thomas would come in and change clothes, and how uncomfortable it was seeing a naked man in a locker room with him.
Not just that, I don't know if you've ever gotten a swimsuit before, but them drawers come off. So it's not like they could just getting in a track uniform and at least leave underwear on or something like that. I mean, you can't exactly be bashful getting in and out of out of a wet bathing suit, especially a one piece for women. getting them out of that swimsuit or having to peel it off you and all that stuff. There's no dainty way of doing it.
I don't have swimsuits that I have to peel off of myself personally, but maybe, is that what you're taking to Greece next month? Is one of those little tiny swimsuits? Yeah, Speedo that you have to peel off.
Actually, I used to wear Speedos when I was a kid, but it was the 70s.
Okay, but not in.
No, I was more talking about taking off a woman's one piece.
Oh goodness!
I wasn't talking about the ones that I was wearing either.
But I mean, they're still sort of tight.
Yeah, even a wrestling singlet after you've been sweating, it was hard to peel off.
Those things are tiny too. Yeah. Ugh.
But yeah, he went after her, and then the wave of backlash, because even like lefties are like, whoa, like you can't do that. An older white male cannot go lash out at a young female.
Yep.
You just can't.
No, Keith.
And I don't know how
Keith
many glasses
Olbermann
of wine he was in.
Yeah, I mean, he steps in it all the time. I know Shaq slammed him a while back. He called one of the LSU stars. He had some bad things to say about her. So, yeah, he's always. Yeah, I mean, it's like you can be provocative and you can say crazy stuff, but he says like dumb stuff. It's not even provocative, right? The reaction he's drawing is everybody's coming at him across the board. I don't think anybody supported what he said.
Well, there were like 10 trans people who agree with him, and none of them were sticking their head up and like, we're sticking.
Right, we're just going to lay.
Trans activists are like, hey, Keith,
yeah, we're going to lay
stop helping.
Yeah, we're going to lay low. We're going to lay low at the moment.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we got a Hurricane Idalia update now that it's gone to sea.
Yeah, it's off the coast of Charleston now, going out towards Bermuda at this point. Now, Dave, was this the hurricane or tropical storm that actually started in the Pacific and cut across Latin America and then formed back in the Gulf? That's where this one came from, right?
I reckon. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's what happened to this one. Is it cut across and then it came up almost directly north. So it didn't come. This was not one of the tropical storms that came from Africa that way. This one came more directly north up through the Gulf.
The Chinese are changing the weather.
Now this one, it made landfall. What is that area? Steinhatchee is the little town that it made landfall.
Steinhatchee, yep. Cedar Key,
which is not a very populated area of Florida. So I know those people.
A big vacation spot,
yeah.
Especially for people who like to go
fishing.
Fishing to a certain extent, but in the season it's scalping.
Yeah, scalping. Gotcha.
Is snorkel and make sure your back turns lobster red before you get done.
Yep.
But yeah, snorkel around and pick up scallops.
Water's shallow, I guess, out in the Gulf.
Yep.
That part.
Shallow and flat. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, this storm had originally, before it hit, I went to bed before the storm hit. It was a Category 3. It got up to a 4, and then it back to a 3 when it came on the shore. And then it comes on the shore, and it went quickly up through South Georgia, through Charleston. So far, I've read that there was only one death in Georgia so far. A tree fell on a guy and killed him. And there's only been one death in Florida, and that was actually from a traffic accident. So it's sort of associated with the hurricane, that he was driving out, and had a traffic accident because of the weather. But I've been surprised that a Category 3 could hit. And it almost was I hate to say this, I know it sounds, but it's almost a non-event. Tons of cleanup. I mean, Florida's going to have tons of cleanup. South Georgia's got tons of cleanup. But this thing from Governor Kemp and Governor DeSantis, even the governor of South Carolina, they did a great job of pulling the troops together, rallying support, and letting everybody know what was going on. I thought they all did an extremely effective job. Yeah,
well, you can tell how bad a storms can be by how the governor's dressed.
Mm-hmm.
Jacket and tie on, no big deal. Tie off, okay, we're looking at a tropical storm.
Yep.
Jacket and tie off, okay, rolled sleeves. And then when he comes on with the official governor pullover windbreaker jacket.
That's what I saw this week.
Yeah, that's when you know it's a Cat 4 or better.
Yep.
because he's gone full business casual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I thought DeSantis did a good job leading up to it. I saw him in a press conference the other day. They were starting to ask him some crazy questions, and he just cut them off right away. And he said, "I'm just focused on the hurricane and getting everybody prepared for it and letting everybody know what's going on." You know, the only critique I saw, and I told you this earlier, is they were interviewing some immigrants down in that area, and they said, "How are we going to rebuild our homes now that the governor has basically told us that immigrants are not welcome in Florida?" So that. You know, that's all they could come up with, right? Is the government, DeSantis' policy on immigrants, and how are they going to rebuild at this point?
Well, even what I saw of Biden last week was good.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
He's like, no, this is about helping people, not about politics, and he shirked off any questions.
Well, I think
partially because he respects DeSantis and hate if it were Trump, if it were Governor Trump down there, like. Let him figure it out himself.
Yeah, and I also think the way that the White House handled the fires out in Hawaii and how poorly that was managed, I think Biden just jumped on this hurricane and said, "I'm going to do all I can to help and look like we're there from day one." When he didn't go to Hawaii until 11 or 12 days after the fires, I think at that point he just had to jump in and look like he was helping as much as possible.
Yeah, he's still telling the false lightning strike story.
Yes. Yep.
Over and over. No one has pulled him aside and said,
"Stop telling that.
Stop. It didn't almost burn down." He once said, my house burned down with my wife in it, and his wife standing next to him.
Yep.
That goes back to that cognitive test.
Exactly.
So we got a bumpy ride on Delta from, I think it's Milan.
Milan, Italy, coming into Atlanta, right? Yeah, I saw this, and I had to send this article to my wife because she always has a hard time flying. But literally, this flight was coming in. Now, I've been on a plane with turbulence before, but they said that in this case, 12 people sustained serious head injuries, including several flight attendants. They said when they got into this turbulence, the flight attendants actually left the floor and hit the ceiling. That's how much the plane dropped in the middle of the flight. So there were two unsecured attendants, I guess, walking down the breezeway or the aisle, and they literally went straight up and hit the ceiling. I can't imagine what that was like. So the flight landed, had emergency landing in Atlanta, and then these people on the plane had to sit there for a couple hours while the emergency personnel and the people that were injured were treated. That wouldn't have been a lot of fun sitting on a plane for additional 2 hours, but boy.
But when you're trying to step over someone getting
bleeding on the
first aid and said, "Hey, I've got a connection."
Yeah, but I can't imagine. I can't imagine being on a plane where that many people, and I can't find any video coverage. So most of the time on flights like this that have severe turbulence, there'll be people filming, or there'll be some TikToks out there, YouTube videos. I've seen nothing, which tells me that they were scared to death. They didn't even want to get their phone out and film this, that the turbulence was that bad.
Or it was so unexpected.
Fast. Yep, it could have happened that fast. And I was wondering, this was the same time that
throw
hurricane.
Something else at you. How'd you have liked to be sitting in the lav?
Oh God!
And have it, be mid action, and have it throw you, smack you against the ceiling, and back down on the toilet.
I didn't know we were going there, but yeah, that wouldn't be a lot of fun to be in a lav.
Maybe if you weren't alone, man, but.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it could always be worse.
It definitely could be.
But I'm glad that everybody survived. I know the flight attendants. When you're dealing with head injuries, just like we're talking about McConnell, concussions are no joke, and you can't predict how long it's going to take someone to heal from a concussion.
Yep. Right.
Yeah. The biggest thing I could prescribe for anybody who's concussed is stay in a mostly dark room and rest.
Mm-hmm.
Try to do as little reading as possible. Watch as little TV as possible.
So no bright lights is what you're saying.
Yeah, just rest. Yep. Just if you're gonna watch something brainless.
Yep, makes sense.
Something like that. I think that maybe going back to Mitch McOnnell may have been what a problem is that he may have pushed coming back.
Yep, could have been.
But as far as this goes, it still doesn't make me afraid to fly.
No, not at all. It's still safer than driving. A lot safer.
Yeah, I still, if your car drops 5 feet, you just don't smack the ceiling and walk away with head injury. I still don't have a problem getting up and going to the lab or on longer flights. When meal service is done and all that stuff, get up and just take a lap around the plane just to keep from getting deep vein thrombosis.
Yep.
Something like that. But Kenny, you have any closing thoughts?
Oh, well, as the show drops, it's Labor Day, so I just wish everybody a happy Labor Day out there. And I hope most people have Monday off. I had one other closing thought. I had a new Chick-fil-A sandwich this week with the pimento cheese and honey on it. That was an interesting sandwich. And look, go Dogs. I'm sure they're going to beat up on their first opponent, probably 62-0. So it's going to be a fun college football weekend. And look, everything in Georgia's fun now. We got college football starting. The Braves are playing incredible. We got a holiday Monday. What could be better at the moment?
Yeah, you got 30 home runs and 60 stolen bases. The Braves have the most home runs in the season. They've outscored their opponents by the most in the season.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
But come October, none of that matters.
Nope.
Because the fans in Atlanta have been on this ride before where everything's great, and then what the hell happened?
I know. Losing the first round. Not this year.
Yeah.
Going to the World Series and winning.
You have to get by them Dodgers again.
Yep.
All right. So if you like what you heard, please like and share us on the socials. You can send us directly from whatever app you use to your friends. Say, hey, check these idiots out. So, happy Labor Day, communist holiday. Big thanks to Eric Cumby, our editor, Ken Poland, my partner in this endeavor. I'm Dave Roberts. Have a great week.
I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. They sing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon.